So you wouldn't, do you know what I mean? You wouldn't choose to sit in that corner if you've got too far. So it's...
Yeah, I don't care, let's just see what to be honest, I'll be almost happy to go on less critical place and leave the more critical bit to deal with, as I'm just a bit too rusty.
Because it's fun.
The only thing that matters is whether they're just kissing the cup.
Yeah. Which again is random. Sometimes it would be nice when they need to go in front of him.
Yeah, I'll focus on
Just his eyes are closed. Yeah, same. His eyes are closed as well. And
his eyes are open, but the man's head is...
yeah.
The guys know exactly what they're in, so yesterday,
No, just as he can't.
Then what?
It's going to be proper rain.
Yeah, you can't see because that man's right in front of him. Yeah, and he's got his eyes shut. Yeah.
I know, it's ridiculous, isn't it?
It's so warm yesterday as well.
Yeah.
Warm and sunny yesterday. I put my sun hat in my bag this morning.
Did you?
Yeah. I thought, oh, I'm standing out there, it might be sunny. Obviously, I don't.
Okay, so you're not sending him going in.
I did send it. It's not too bad, actually.
Yeah, but like I say, compared to
Not
what
the
they've
economy.
got,
Yeah.
it's not. See if I don't get a single anything card.
Yeah.
I'm not sending it yet. The reflection on the car is wrong. And I don't get a good one. Or it's
Everything else.
I couldn't get anything decent out of it. Yeah, all my stuff is just out of focus.
Was it coming as well?
Yeah.
It's just really dark.
Yeah, same.
And then it's really slide out.
Yeah.
What did the Alps say? You guys down here?
Jeez, that was so bad.
I wonder if you get more for going on.
Talking about that is the cost of living crisis, but it's pretty clear, looking at the sort of draft bills that have been postponed, that the government have been talked about, that the government is going to say it is doing everything it can without really promising radical changes in the financial system or large sums of support going to those people who really need them. So that, I think, is a very delicate balance for Mr. Johnson, who we'll see shortly arriving at the bar of the House of Lords to listen to the speech. I was just wondering, incidentally, about the language, because of course it's not yet Prince Charles's government, but I think in the Queen's speech he will still refer to it as my government because he's speaking on behalf of the sovereign.
Let's bring in our current political editor, Beth Rigby, who's sitting next to me here in the studio. And Beth, it's been an interesting 24 hours in politics, hasn't it? And we heard from Keir Starmer yesterday. We are going to hear from both the Prime Minister and Keir Starmer later on today, aren't we, in the House of Commons? Do you think that they will not divert from the script, that it will all be about the Queen's speech, or do you expect the other issues that a lot of us have been focused on over the past few days will creep in?
Well, it will be the first time that they meet since Keir Starmer it was announced that he was under police investigation. But as we saw yesterday, Keir Starmer took a gamble, you could call it a calculated gamble, in which he sought to try and put clear blue water between him and Boris Johnson by saying, yes, I'm under investigation. If I get a fixed penalty notice, I will step down as Labour leader with all the consequences of that that would follow. And in that sense, Labour think that they have put Boris Johnson in quite an awkward position once more on this, because obviously he didn't resign when he had a fixed penalty notice. So I imagine that both men might want to avoid that conversation whilst discussing the Queen's speech today. And you have to put it in the context of the Queen not being there, that this is quite a big moment. It's obviously a regretful moment that she can't attend, and some of my Whitehall sources were telling me that this decision was taken genuinely right at the last minute, that it was not taken lightly, that she left it right to the final point to finally sign that writ authorising her son, Prince Charles, to make that speech. And it's quite a sad day really that she isn't there, and I'm very glad to hear that she's going to be watching it, even if she can't be with us. But just quickly, picking up on what Adam said about the politics of the Queen's speech, I think one of the big themes we're going to see today, when I was saying about things being left out, is part of this is about stripping, to quote some of the Conservatives' advisors that helped both David Cameron and Boris Johnson in the 2015 and 19 elections is to strip the barnacles off the boat. And what that means is taking out pieces of legislation that might be controversial with the Conservative Parliamentary Party in order to not give Boris Johnson any more problems than he's already got. So in terms of a big planning bill, that's not there anymore. In terms of banning fur imports and foie gras imports, which was around animal cruelty, something the Prime Minister was looking at, that has been shelved. Plans to give flexible work, if that's to be written into law, again with the Conservative right, not very popular, that has been shelved. And what you do see is some Brexit deregulation. You see some tougher measures on being able to deport serious criminals. So actually this Queen's speech is very political, and it's as much about Boris Johnson's survival at the moment as it is about looking forward to the next general election. And I think that is absolutely fascinating, given that he's got a big majority. He's not actually very politically powerful at the moment.
It's about appeasing backbenchers. Brilliant. Thanks, Beth. Thanks very much. David Leakey, former Blackrod, still with us also. We're seeing now the Commons, aren't we, on the right-hand side of our screen there. Just talk us through what's happening there. So we've got Prince Charles and Prince William arrived at the Sovereign's entrance, being robed up if they were the Queen. But what's happening on the other side?
So, well, now we have a picture of the House of Commons chamber itself. MPs assembling in the chamber. Over the next 5 or 10 minutes, the chamber normally would filled to brim full, and standing room. In fact, not even standing room. And then the House of Commons will start their morning's procedure with the normal procedure, the Speaker's procession from down the library corridor through Central Lobby.
This is Central Lobby here, so that's what these people are gathered to watch.
Mr. Speaker, Sir Lindsay Hoyle, will process with his chaplain and his staff through Central Lobby down to the House of Commons chamber. They will enter the chamber. The doors will then close whilst they start their business, which always starts with prayers at the beginning of the day.
And the doors close. Why are the doors closed on Blackrod?
The doors are closed just for their prayers. After prayers, then they suspend proceedings and the doors are then reopened. Once the Queen, or in this case Prince Charles, has taken his place in the House of Lords chamber, not on the throne, but to one side of the throne, he will then give a signal, a command to the Lord Great Chamberlain. We hear now on the Speaker's ceremony, Sir Lindsay Hoyle with Speaker's chaplain and his entourage. This is a formal procession that takes place every day at the beginning of proceedings in the House of Commons. And similarly, the House of Lords has a similar but actually rather small procession that starts their proceedings as well.
What are they shouting?
Hats off, and this is a sign of respect. It's rather like the military saluting a senior person. It's hats off when... So there you see the Sergeant-at-Arms carrying the House of Commons mace. Proceedings can't start in the House of Commons until the mace is on the table. Sir Lindsay Hoyle, the Speaker's chaplain there, and the Speaker's private secretary. You'll notice there was a Steadicam following the Speaker, and I can remember the very first time I was sent by the Queen to summon the MPs from the House of Commons chamber. I was surprised when I noticed that from the previous recordings, which I had a look at, that there was always a rather close close-up of the Blackrod's face as my predecessors, had walked down towards the House of Commons chamber. And I then discovered that on the day, the reason they get that close-up, or the way they get it, is that there's a cameraman with a Steadicam who walks backwards in front of you, if that's not counterintuitive. And there's someone behind him who's reeling in a wire. So you have to actually walk quite slowly and try and keep a straight face.
And not bump into him.
And not bump into him, or trip over him.
And we just saw the camera going to black there. That's for the prayers, and is that what the bell signifies?
And that's what the bells, so that signifies that the House of Commons chamber is now in session. The mace is on the table, the Speaker is in the chair, and prayers will commence.
And we're focusing on this. This is all tradition, isn't it? But it's also part of the law of Parliament, that the structure of this event and the fact that the Queen opens and closes it.
Yes, and the background to this is that there are three elements to our legislative constitution, our constitutional legislature, to put it the other way around. And the three elements are the House of Commons, the democratically elected chamber, the House of Lords, which is often called the advisory or revising chamber, and then the sovereign, who signs off or enacts legislation. And those are the three constitutional elements of the legislature. And it's on this day, the state opening of Parliament, that all those three elements come together in one place at one time. And it's also significant that the Palace of Westminster used to be a royal palace exclusively owned by the sovereign. In fact, Henry VIII, it was his residence. He was the last sovereign to live there. But it was under the ownership of the sovereign until as recently as 1965. And it was only in 1965 that the Queen, and it was on her initiative, agreed with Harold Wilson, who was the Prime Minister at the time, that it was inappropriate for the sovereign to own the democratically elected chamber of Parliament. And so they agreed that the House of Lords and the House of Commons, parts of the Palace of Westminster, would be handed over from the sovereign and taken under the management and control of the House of Lords and House of Commons, and that was done in a statement on the floors of the chamber. But interestingly, the sovereign has retained some parts of the Palace of Westminster, so it is in part still a royal palace.
Kept the sovereign's entrance.
The sovereign's entrance and the royal robing room and the royal gallery, and Westminster Hall too.
And just remind us how it was affected by COVID, the Queen's speech. How different was it over the last couple of years?
Well, it was very much a dressed down or scaled down COVID. Everybody present was wearing masks, and it was a very much less ceremonial occasion with minimal contact and smaller attendance as well.
Let's bring back in Tessa Dunlop, the royal historian and author. And Tessa, one wonders what's going through Prince Charles and Prince William's minds today. Prince Charles obviously knows that this potentially on the passing of his mother is his destiny, isn't it? But today, just standing in for her.
Yeah, he's had a lifetime of training. We know that recently he's been there at the state opening of Parliament, very much in a supportive role. And in many respects, I think what we see here is the monarchy not as an individual, but as an institution. And Charles, there he is in his Admiral of the Fleet uniform, surrounded by regalia and structure, form, history, pomp and ceremony. And it seems less about him as the individual and rather about him as part of this regal institution that is an extraordinary sort of umbrella over our form of government in Britain. And I'm sure that the Queen watching today will feel a lot of maternal pride because her son's been on something of a journey over the last few decades. And actually, I think it's a sort of comfort almost to see him surrounded by this structure of state and of royalty. It sort of almost reduces the pressure on him. It reminds us that it's not about individual personalities, monarchy, much less so, and in some respects it's just about them sort of providing us with this sovereign canopy, if you like. And I think he'll do it very well. I'm sure he's rehearsed the speech a few times in front of the mirror this morning. Incidentally, when both the Queen's father and grandfather were ill and the Lord Chancellor stood in for them on both occasions, their illness was referred to before the Queen's speech.
Mr. Speaker, the Queen commands this Honourable House to attend her Councillors of State immediately in the House of Peers.
My Lords and members of the House of Commons, Her Majesty's government's priority is to grow and strengthen the economy and help ease the cost of living for families. Her Majesty's government will level up opportunity in all parts of the country and support more people into work. Her Majesty's ministers will continue to support the police to make the streets safer and fund the National Health Service to reduce the COVID backlogs. In these challenging times, Her Majesty's government will play a leading role in defending democracy and freedom across the world, including continuing to support the people of Ukraine. Her Majesty's government will drive economic growth to improve living standards and fund sustainable investment in public services. This will be underpinned by a responsible approach to the public finances, reducing debt while reforming and cutting taxes. Her Majesty's ministers will support the Bank of England to return inflation to its target. A bill will be brought forward to drive local growth, empowering local leaders to regenerate their areas and ensuring everyone can share in the United Kingdom's success. The planning system will be reformed to give residents more involvement in local development. Her Majesty's government will improve transport across the United Kingdom, delivering safer, cleaner services and enabling more innovations. Legislation will be introduced to modernise rail services and improve reliability for passengers. Her Majesty's ministers will bring forward an energy bill to deliver the transition to cheaper, cleaner and more secure energy. This will build on the success of the COP26 summit in Glasgow last year. Draft legislation to promote competition, strengthen consumer rights and protect households and businesses will be published. Measures will also be published to create new competition rules for digital markets and the largest digital firms. Her Majesty's government will establish the UK Infrastructure Bank in legislation with objectives to support economic growth and the delivery of net zero. Reforms to education will help every child fulfil their potential wherever they live, raising standards and improving the quality of schools and higher education. Her Majesty's ministers will publish draft legislation to reform the Mental Health Act. Her Majesty's government will continue to seize the opportunities of the United Kingdom's departure from the European Union to support economic growth. Regulations on businesses will be repealed and reformed. A bill will enable law inherited from the European Union to be more easily amended. Public sector procurement will be simplified to provide new opportunities for small businesses. New legislation will strengthen the United Kingdom's financial services industry, ensuring that it continues to act in the interest of all people and communities. The United Kingdom's data protection regime will be reformed. Her Majesty's government will continue to champion international trade, delivering jobs across the country and growing the economy. Legislation will be introduced to enable the implementation of the United Kingdom's first new free trade agreements since leaving the European Union. Her Majesty's ministers will encourage agricultural and scientific innovation at home. Legislation will unlock the potential of new technologies to promote sustainable and efficient farming and food production. Her Majesty's government will protect the integrity of the United Kingdom's borders and ensure the safety of its people. Her Majesty's ministers will take action to prevent dangerous and illegal channel crossings and tackle the criminal gangs who profit from facilitating them. Legislation will be introduced to ensure the police have the powers to make the streets safer. A bill will be brought forward to further strengthen powers to tackle illicit finance, reduce economic crime, and help businesses grow. Measures will be introduced to support the security services and help them protect the United Kingdom. Her Majesty's government will lead the way in championing security around the world. It will continue to invest in Her Majesty's gallant armed forces. Her Majesty's ministers will work closely with international partners to maintain a united NATO and address the most pressing global security challenges. The continued success and integrity of the whole of the United Kingdom is of paramount importance to Her Majesty's government, including the internal economic bonds between all of its parts. Her Majesty's government will prioritise support for the Belfast Good Friday Agreement and its institutions, including through legislation to address the legacy of the past. Her Majesty's government will ensure the Constitution is defended. Her Majesty's ministers will restore the balance of power between the legislature and the courts by introducing a Bill of Rights. Legislation will prevent public bodies engaging in boycotts that undermine community cohesion. Her Majesty's government will introduce legislation to improve the regulation of social housing, to strengthen the rights of tenants and ensure better quality, safer homes. Legislation will also be introduced to ban conversion therapy. Proposals will be published to establish an independent regulator of English football. In this year of the Platinum Jubilee, Her Majesty looks forward to the celebrations taking place across the United Kingdom and throughout the Commonwealth, and to the Commonwealth Games in Birmingham this summer. Members of the House of Commons, estimates for the public services will be laid before you. My Lords and members of the House of Commons, other measures will be laid before you. Her Majesty prays that the blessing of Almighty God may rest upon your councils.